Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our monthly Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM user group. We have some great information and training for Microsoft Dynamics admins and users on the docket today. For those who don't know me, I'm Chad Collette, the Director of Marketing here at Ledgeview Partners. Ledgeview is a business and technology consulting company who partners with organizations to transform your sales, marketing, and customer service operations and processes that are supported by core technologies like CRM solutions, including Microsoft Dynamics 365, of which Ledgeview is a Microsoft Gold Partner. Now, I see a lot of familiar names on the webinar today, but for those that may not be aware, in addition to these monthly user group webinars, where we touch on a wide variety of educational topics for both users and admins, the ledgeviewpartners.com website has a huge amount of resources on it that cover a range of topics including sales, marketing, customer service, user adoption, and of course, Dynamics 365 and CRM. We publish 5 to 6 new blog posts each week and have nearly 50 ebooks and a fantastic infographics for some quick bite-sized learning. We have short videos and a large library of on-demand webinars. We really encourage you to take the time to utilize these resources and the knowledge and the insight that they provide. All of these are available at ledgeviewpartners.com under our resources tab. And if anyone has a suggestion for an upcoming user group topic, a webinar, an ebook, infographic, or blog post, please drop me an email or let us know in the survey that'll follow this webinar. We'd love to hear from you as we ramp up our content calendar for 2020. Now, before we get into the core of today's webinar, I have just a couple of standard housekeeping details to cover. First, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email from me after the webinar is complete with a link to access the video and full details. Now, if you haven't already, add @ledgeviewpartners.com to your safe senders list to ensure you get our emails. And if you happen to find us in your clutter, your junk, or your spam, please mark us as a safe sender. We encourage you to share any of our resources with your company and also refer us to other Dynamics 365 and CRM users you may know. Our goal at Ledgeview is to grow user adoption of Microsoft Dynamics and help organizations achieve the greatest return on investment possible. Now, to ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you have a question or comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. We will follow up with you afterwards as we do have a full agenda today and want to be respectful of everyone's time. Now that those housekeeping items are out of the way, I want to welcome today's presenter and main topic. Being a Dynamics 365 or CRM admin is a critical job, and oftentimes people get thrust into this role without adequate training and resources. Ledgeview has offered this topic of best practices for the beginner admins for the past several years in this user group, and it's been one of our most popular. And also, make sure to attend next month for Chapter 2, our best practices for the advanced admin. We want to ensure that admins have the resources and the knowledge that they need to ensure that users and their organizations are getting the very most they can out of Dynamics 365 and CRM. And that leads us into our presenter for today. He's definitely a fan favorite in both of these monthly user groups and around the Ledgeview office. Mike Dodds is an application consultant with Ledgeview Partners and holds multiple certifications across the solution. Now, I know admin training is a topic that is near and dear to him, and he does a lot of it. So instead of listening to me ramble on, I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike and lead us into our November user group training.
Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Chad. And that very, very corny joke, I think that ranks right up there with some of my best. And as Chad likes to call me, I'm the go-to weatherman for the office as well. So your monthly weather report. It's cold in Wisconsin. Too cold for somebody who was born and lived a lot of his life in the South. So I'm ready to go back. So for all of my brethren in the South, enjoy the warmth. You're very lucky. Now we got a lot of great topics to get to, so we're going to jump right in. Beginner admin, as Chad said, admin training is something that is very near and dear to my heart because it is something that is critically important, something that you should, as an admin, whether you're thrust into the role or something that you're passionate about as well, that you really need the tools and best practices to do well. That way, you're not scrambling to fix issues later on. This is really what we cover in a typical beginner admin training. There's so many different types of admin trainings that we offer here at Ledgeview Partners, but this is just what the typical 2-hour training looks like. System settings, privacy preferences, that changes slightly with the new 9.0 release, where privacy preferences are more handled in the personal options for users. Auditing, data management, duplicate detection, bulk record deletion, basic security settings, and customize the system, which is what everybody loves, because that's, as an admin, that's what you think about. Updating the entities, the fields, the views, charts, dashboards, option sets. That's what everybody thinks about when it comes to being an admin. But actually, those other items are critical to understand, as well as keeping the day-to-day items in check. So we're going to go over some key items today. Obviously, we don't have 2 hours to go over, a typical training. So we're going to touch on some items in a smaller portion today. If you are interested in this information, or you're interested in learning more about this, we are more than happy to help. So we're going to touch on auditing to start off with. And why is auditing so important? This is honestly probably the most important thing to touch on in admin training, but it is the one that is overlooked the most. Entities and fields are being audited, and you can use that audit history. So if you set them up to be audited, you can use that history to determine who updated the field, meaning a user, a workflow, a plugin. If you ever worked with our awesome support team, they've probably have looked at this audit history 100 times over. They're looking to go, okay, well, did a workflow adjust this? Was it a plugin? Was it a user that made this change? Because then it helps to determine where the issue came from. So these are the beginning steps. Auditing is super important. So if it's not turned on, that's going to be one of the first steps that to troubleshoot it. It's also going to help determine what is triggering the update of the field. By what changed right before the change you're trying to troubleshoot. So did a user change a specific field that then caused all these issues? Well, that's going to help troubleshoot, because you see what's happening. You can see the trends that are happening for the fields that are being updated. Audit history can drastically cut down on troubleshooting time because of the information that's displayed on the record level. It's very, very critical. So now we know why it's important. And in addition to those items of why it's important, it's also nice to know, well, did somebody make a change to my system? A user? And if that's the case, then we know we need to adjust some security settings as well. So it also helps in that area as well. And now that we know why it's important, how do we turn it on? Well, you got to do it in a few different places. First, you have to turn it on system-wide. You have to go into settings, auditing, and then global audit settings. Any of you that are in the new unified interface, you have to go to the gear in the upper right corner and go to advanced settings, and that's going to kick you into the settings area. Unfortunately, that's part of the new UI. That's the only way you can get to the settings area. So it's an important note there. If you've been wondering, how do I get to the settings area? Now that you've changed it over, that's how. So go to auditing and click on global audit settings. You're going to turn on auditing by check marking start auditing. Audit user access. This is something that a lot of people are like, wow, this is great. Let's turn on an audit user access. It sounds nicer than it really is, because all you're really doing is saying, okay, well, when did they start? When did they go into the system? It's not really telling you what they did. There are other things like organization insights that are going to tell you a lot more about what the user is doing. And if you use the old Outlook client plugin, if they open up Outlook and they're not in CRM, it's just going to tell you that they opened Outlook because they're connected. So it doesn't do you any good if you have the Outlook client. Then you need to set up auditing on the entities themselves. Okay. In global settings, you can actually turn them on in bulk. There's these enable auditing in the following areas: common entities, sales entities, marketing entities, and customer service entities. Sounds great in theory because you can turn them on and off in bulk. But there could be some entities in here you're like, I'm never going to use them, so why would I need to turn on auditing? And that's the correct way of thinking, because all it's going to do is take up space for something that you're really not utilizing. So I highly recommend turning on auditing for the entities you're actually going to be using. To do that, you can stay in the auditing area, and there's a section that says entity and field auditing, or you can go to settings, customizations, customize the system. It takes you to the same place. Choose an entity and select auditing to be on or off right here. Then allow auditing per field. By the way, very important, as soon as you check mark the auditing field, it's going to give you this little note. It says, note, by default, all fields for this entity are enabled for auditing. That's not necessarily true. It's a wording confusion. It basically should read that by default, when you create a field, it's enabled for auditing. But you can turn fields on and off from being audited. It's not saying that when you check this box, all fields are then audited. So that's not true at all. So what you should always do as a next step is go into your field section. So settings, customize the system, choose the entity, and then go into the field section under that entity and sort by auditing for those fields. And then you can see which ones are enabled and disabled and not applicable for auditing. Because there will be some that are disabled, and if you want them to be audited, turn them on. Set them to enabled. And how you do that is open the field, auditing, enabled. Not applicable means it's not going to be audited and you can't turn it on. Second biggest thing that you want to know how to do is duplicate detection. You can follow every single best practice when it comes to user adoption. You can kill the design. You can make it the best design known to man. Your users can be on board. You can make it the best training. You can have everybody fired up and ready to go. But if you start getting duplicates in your system and you start getting bad data in your system, that user adoption will fall off the map very quickly. So duplicate detection and keeping duplicates out of your system is very important. So, how do we do it? Duplicate detection settings. To turn them on, you want to go to Settings, Data Management, Duplicate Detection, and then you turn it on. Very important, when a record is created or updated, definitely have that one on. When Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Outlook goes from offline to online. Now, if you're online and you're using Dynamics 365 server-side sync, you probably have been set up with the app for Outlook, which means this does not apply to you. If you've ever heard me talk, or anyone from our support team, or actually anyone from Ledgeview, we've probably told you we do not recommend going offline with Dynamics 365. The reason why is there are just too many chances for things to be overwritten. Okay? If you do go offline, we definitely recommend having this checked because it will help with duplicate detection. And then during data import. Crucial note here. When a record is created or updated, it will give you the ability to bypass. It will say, hey, warning, just so you know, there's a duplicate here based on your duplicate detection rules. This is what it is. but it gives you the ability to bypass it. Data import does not. That means you have an Excel file and you're importing it and say, hey, create all these records. If it finds a duplicate, it's not going to pause your data import for you to decide to keep or not. It's just going to flag it and keep going to the next one, meaning it's going to tell you in the error log that it failed, and to fix it, you're just going to have to either turn off duplicate detection rules for your import when you redo it, adjust your duplicate detection rules, or find a different method for those data imports. Find a different way of doing the naming convention, items like that to get around the data import. It's a very, very important thing. Duplicate detection rules. This is what everything for duplicate detection is driven off of. As I said, it's one of the most important and underutilized tools in CRM. Okay, do not rely on system duplicate detection rules. The reason why is they actually have one. They're not terrible. They just have a very big flaw in them. And the reason why I bring that up is because there's a great tool, and I'll show you on this next page here, that shows that has ignore blanks. The system duplicate detection rules always never have that checked. Okay, you're not ignoring blank values. Okay, so if we think about it from this circumstance, Chad and I are clearly two different people, but let's say we have a duplicate detection rule that's based off of email address. Email address is not a required field out of the box for contacts. So we fill it in, Chad Collette, Michael Dodds, fill in all that information, and let's say our only duplicate detection rule is email address. And we say exact match, email address, exact match, but we're not ignoring blank values. It's going to look at it and say, well, Chad's email address is blank, Mike's email address is blank. Well, that's a match. They're both blank. We're not the same person, and yet it's going to say that where duplicates are detected. So that's why that's critical. Duplicate detection rules for contacts and lead to contacts. Very, very important to have those. Because a lead to contact, you don't want to get all the way through the lead process and then go to qualify it only to realize that you already have that contact in there. You don't see an entity available to set a duplicate detection rule for, then the entity needs to be enabled for duplicate detection. That is done in the entity section. So where we turned it on for auditing, you can also turn it off for duplicate detection in that same location. Here are some really good duplicate detection rules focused around for contacts and leads. These are focused around email addresses. So here we're saying contact to contact. Never do case sensitive. People don't spell things correctly most of the time when they're entering it. I mean, there are misspellings all the time. So much less do they use the same case sensitivity. So unless there's a very specific business reason, do not ever check that box. Exclude inactive matching records. The reason why I say leave that one unchecked is, let's say Chad's working with us and then we deactivate his contact record, but comes back and we end up working with him again. Well, if we're going to go and enter him in the system, it would be really great to just reactivate him and get all of his information back as opposed to recreating Chad's contact record. If you had checkmarked this box, duplicate detection would not have found him. So, by leaving it unchecked, we could find Chad's inactive record, reactivate him. It's more efficient, and you get more information. Then we do email exact match, ignore blank values. But the lead to contact, this one is critical. Email to email, exact match, ignore blank values. A common request is, can we do company name? look at company name to company name exact match. Great idea. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because company name on a lead is a fill in the blank text field. Company name on a contact is a lookup field. They're not the same type of fields. They're called data types. They're not the same data type, so you cannot do that as a duplicate detection rule. It will fail. All right, our last one for the day is customize the system. We are going to look at entities, forms, fields, and views. So I'm going to do a brief overview of each of these. So without further ado, let's jump into Dynamics. All right. So from here, we're going to jump into settings, customizations, customize the system. If any of you have ever attended one of my trainings for admin, you know that it's always create a solution from dev to production. However, for a training or webinar purpose, when I actually go over entities, views, forms, and fields, and those kind of items, I do it from customize the system because all the information is already there. Makes it easy for training and webinars. So from here, I'm going to click the the white arrow under entities, and then I'm going to click on account. Most of the time, I'm going to hit this drop down arrow here to get into the rest of account, but since we're going to look at entities, the entity itself, I want to click directly on account. Display name, plural name. You can change this. A lot of people have changed this to, let's say, company, because it just fits their business model better. You can do that. You can change it. The only thing you can't change is this, the name. That's called the schema name, the database name. That's what that portion is. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to really have to deal with that as an admin. You're more looking at display names and plural names. A partner like us, we're going to be interested in that schema name or name here. Critical for you, though, always change display name and plural name. If you just change the display name but not the plural, you're going to really throw your users for a loop. So it's a great April Fool's joke that you can play on them. Because if you just change the account, but not accounts, they'll see it in the navigation, but when they go to look for it in advanced find, they won't see company names, they'll see accounts. So it's very critical to change it in both spots. This is showing you where it's available in the navigation. A lot of these, once you check them, you cannot uncheck them. So business process flows, fields are created, that's why you can't uncheck it. Same with notes and activities, ability to send an email. OneNote integrations, basically saying it has the availability to have the OneNote integration. Okay, this is not saying you have to use them. It's not saying, okay, well now I'm forced to use notes. No, it's saying you have the ability to use notes. Allow quick create. I'm going to move this aside for just a second. If I click here, count, this little half screen form, specialized form, that's a quick create form. If I don't have this checked, this allow quick create, I can't set up a quick create form. That won't happen. As soon as I click the plus sign on a subgrid, it's going to come up with the full main form. And when I click the plus sign that I just did there, count wouldn't have been available there. Duplicate detection and auditing we covered before. This auditing is specialized auditing. It's called read auditing. You can learn more about it in the webinar that I did on read auditing. Cannot remember the exact month that we did it, but it was within the last 3 months. And then down here, enable for Phones Express, not necessary. Phone Express is an old mobile utility that's no longer used. Enable for mobile, definitely want to use. Read-only mode, it's going to confuse your users as well. If you set this up as read-only in mobile, it means they can't make edits. Enable for mobile offline. If it's not, you cannot do the mobile offline pieces. Primary field, this is your name. that big bold letters at the top of your account record, that's what this is. Controls, this is where you have the ability to set up editable grids. Right. And then if we jump down into forms, I'm going to go into a main form. So if I go into the account main form, this is, when you go into a record, this is what it looks like. So if you want to make adjustments, move fields around, change the size of it, move where the label is, create new tabs. Tabs are these pieces at the top. Summary. Create new sections, which this is account information. You can do that. By the way, don't do drag and drop. Use your arrows. Click on it. Start moving it down with your arrow keys. 10 times easier. Okay. Now, let's say we have a lookup field, so like parent account. There's the ability to, actually I'm going to go to primary contact. I apologize. So primary contact over here, this is a lookup field. Okay. You see here when we say only show me records where the contact's company name is the account of the current record. Basically, I'm saying only show me contacts where the account equals the account that I'm on. I don't want to get a list of every single contact that we have. You're basically filtering down the lookup fields, lookup records that you're allowed to get. That's what you're allowed to do here. It's filtering. And then the other items that you can do, you can set it to be read only. Locking the field on the form, this is just really not helpful at all, because as an admin, you can turn on and off this field, but all it's saying is you can't remove the field from the form, but you could come in here and uncheck it and then remove it all you want. If you have multiple admins and somebody says, hey, I don't want you to remove this from the form, then lock it, because it gives a warning to it's like saying to another admin, hey, we should talk before you remove this. Visible by default, it hides it, so it's not visible. I always have that available on the phone. This is showing what different views, they can choose different views to show for when looking at the primary contact, but the default is the contacts lookup view. Okay. These are subgrids, so it's going to show all the contacts that are associated to this account, and you can change that. You can configure that as well. The other items that you can do, so on a section, whoops, be careful like that, like I just did there. Don't click too quickly. And double click in. You can change the label name. You can put a line at the top. Formatting. 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, 4 columns. That's important because then it says within this section I can put 4 fields in one line. And if you want one to be bigger, you make the field formatting to be 4 wide. Just know that if you can't move, remember your division. You can't move larger fields into a smaller area. It doesn't really work. Okay? So if it's not letting you move it into it, it has to do with the formatting and the number of columns available. Okay? Field label assignment, that's basically showing you, hey, are we putting it to the left, to the right, to the center? Where is this showing? Field label position, is it to the top or is it to the side? If you put it on the top, it gives you more room to write, but it makes the field a little bit bigger. It's just ways to play around with it to make your form look nicer. Okay. Right. And then fields. Fields. This is your display name. This you can change as many times as you want to. However, this, the name, just like the name you saw for the entity. This is called a schema name. Essentially what that means is this is the database name. You can't change it. Once you save it, it's locked in stone. Field requirement, optional, business recommended, business required. Optional, fill it in, don't fill it in, system doesn't care. Business recommended, that's basically the same thing. However, it has a little blue cross next to it to draw your attention to it. But it's not, doesn't stop you, doesn't give you a warning, nothing like that. Business required, you have to fill it out before you save. Field security, this is basically saying you have to enable it to do these things called field security profiles, which are a way to enforce only certain people can read it or edit it, but you have to enable this first. This piece called searchable, if you change this to no, it is essentially saying, hey, you can no longer search this field, and it will no longer show an advanced find filtering. That's what that means. Auditing, we talked about this, enable, disable. Description, this is like your help text. Your different data types. Single line of text, that just means a small text box. Simple and calculated, to give you an idea as to what calculated, there's two specialized fields called calculated and roll up. Calculated means some simple ones is you can add two currency fields together. You can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You can also do dates, where you can do difference between dates. So if you want to know how long an opportunity has been open, that would be a calculated field. Really nice ones that you can do. Formatting here, email, text. So an email, that's going to force into an email type field. Text area, URL, that's how you force into that email type. Your websites are set like that. Your ticker symbol, and then phone. Phone, if you do that, when you click on it, it can dial out through your Skype system or your Skype for Business system. Skype or Skype for Business, I should say. And maximum length, this is actually 4,000 for this one. IME mode, this literally means if you use Korean or Japanese characters, then you'll care about this. If you don't, just leave it at whatever it has. The other items, option sets. This means your users can pick and choose from what you set. For option sets, every single time, do use existing option set, create a new global option set. The reason why is because with a global option set, you're maintaining it in one location. Okay, local option sets are basically it's only on this entity, and that is it. If there's a chance that you're going to use this in any other entity, create a global option set, because then you have to replicate it, and then workflows cannot connect to each other, and you're going to have to recreate it anyways. Okay, but long story short, with option sets, you're picking and choosing the options that people can have. Multi-select option set, same thing, except they can choose more than one option. Two options, yes or no, true, false, pineapple and banana. Doesn't matter what the label is, just can only be two options. Whole number, it's literally a whole number. And it can be this ridiculous negative value all the way up to this ridiculous positive value. You don't want it to be any negative, set it to 0. If you want it to only be 0 through 10, go for it. This one you can also do a roll-up field. Roll-up fields are awesome. Roll-up fields are basically saying, hey, I have these child records, like an account on opportunities. For this account, it'll roll up and total up all the estimated revenue and put that number right on the account. There's a lot more to roll-up fields that I get into in trainings, but that's what it does. Then you have decimal numbers, currency, and then multiple line of text. That's literally just a big text box. Date and time fields. Very important. User local means it displays in your time zone, but behind the scenes it does it in what's called a UTC time zone, which is 5 hours or 6 hours ahead of Central based on daylight savings time. Time zone independent, everything's in UTC. Date only is date only. Everything's at 12 a.m. Same in the UI and the behind the scenes. And then the last one, lookup. It's a lookup, which means like when you're looking up from an opportunity to an account, you're looking up to the account record associated to it. And then customer, do not ever create a customer field. The reason why is because it looks up to two things, an account and a contact record. The reason why I do not like this field, because it causes more harm than good, it reduces the functionality of the system. There are certain things with when you have parent accounts, it doesn't allow you to use the under field. It's used on contacts and cases. So there are times where you'll see this and go, why can't I do this? Like, why can't I use this under functionality? Or you'll look it up and go, why can I choose a contact or an account? Or why does it list contacts and accounts? That's why. It causes confusion for your users and then it reduces functionality. So I do not recommend utilizing this field. So those are fields. And then the last thing I want to go over is views. Views are simply advanced find in your customized system. It's the exact same thing. The only thing you're not doing is choosing your look for, because you've technically already done that by going into the entity over here. So you provide your name, and then you do your edit filter criteria, you add your columns. It's all the same things that you've done in advanced find. And 9 times out of 10, as an admin, you're going to be editing views, not necessarily creating them. Okay. Last, most important piece of advice, do not click this red shiny button up here. I know it's not red. Do not click publish all customizations, because what it will do is it will not only publish every single thing in here, it will publish any unmanaged solution, okay, that you have in your system. Okay. Don't hit that. Go back up to account. Then click. I know it's a little bit more time, but trust me, it will save you in the long run. Wait for it to finish loading. Then click save. Then click publish. What it will do is it will only publish the things in this entity. Okay, the reason why that's important is, let's say 2 admins are working in the system at the same time. One's ready to publish their items, the other one is not. You just published the other person's items, and now they have to go and it wasn't ready. So now their timeline to get everything ready to be live just got sped up exponentially. That's why you don't want to do that. As soon as you published it, you're ready to go. All right, and now we're going to end with our user submitted questions. This individual wrote additional areas of challenge, security, licensing, and solutioning enhancements in an agile environment. For security, definitely it's very unique depending on the individuals, depending on your system and how you want security to be set up. And then for licensing, it's definitely something that we can assist on outside of a training session. And then in terms of solutioning, I recommend this 100%. To do everything in a dev environment, all your configuration, all your testing. Once you get sign off, then you take all those pieces in an unmanaged solution, export them, and import them into your production environment. I cover all of this in an advanced admin training session. I also would looks like you have sounds like you have some very specific things that you would want to cover. I would recommend discussing a customized training session. Back to you, Chad.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Again, if you missed the kind of the start of it, we've got a number of CRM resources at ledgeviewpartners.com, including ebooks, infographics, on-demand webinars. We'll be sending out before the end of the year kind of a recap of all these different user groups that we've done on. And thanks to Mike for touching on just a variety of different topics, including security and Dynamics 101 and SharePoint integrations, OneNote, all kinds of stuff. In addition to these best practices for beginner admins. Hope everybody can join us next month, depending on your willingness to learn and your availability to really hit up our best practices for the advanced admin as Mike takes it to just another level beyond this. So again, look for an email coming from us with this resources and many more. And until next time, we want to thank you very much for attending and have a great day and really dive in and get the most out of Dynamics 365 and CRM. Thank you.